Okay, guys, hello again. This is Reverend Sean over at the Center Path, and I want to go over some of the ideas of basic Buddhist teachings and basic Buddhism, really. So, if you're really starting out as a Buddhist and you have here's some words and here's some things, you're wondering kind of like what level they're in. That's what this is all about. So, make sure that if you can like the video, that way it gets sent to more people, and also subscribe so you can see the other stuff that we're doing. So, we're going over this little two-page cheat sheet, if you will, that I made for Buddhists for basic Buddhism. Now we use these in my classes, and we use these in my videos that you've seen if you've seen other ones. And we're going through and we're rounding around. Now there's a couple of things that I've been doing with this minister work that I work with as a priest. Is we're doing the Dharma teaching, so basic Buddhism. I'm also on Reddit as Sitting Still 9. You can look me up there on the Buddhism and all these different ones like that, and I'll either answer questions, and I'm also on Facebook and things like that. So we're going to be combining all of those things together for people. And I'm outside today, just kind of like relaxing. And we're going to go over the levels of the Sangha. Okay, the Sangha is the community. Now, in generality, we call it the Sangha is the community of monks and the community of practitioners and bodhisattvas, if you will. Bodhisattvas are those who are reaching forward to become a Buddha, like they're working towards becoming a Buddha in some way. They're on the path. Okay, usually that was sought for a higher monk, what we would call now a Mahasangha. Maha means the bigger, the greater, the greater monks, Mahasangha. So when we address them, we would call them the Mahasangha, or we would call the Sangha. Now, these days, especially here in the West, we're starting to see that the Sangha is just the community of people you practice with. It could be your church or temple, it's your practice group, it's your meditation group. And so we have different levels and layers of people within those. Okay, so the first one is the laity. That's your average Joe. That's us. Well, not us. That's probably you. You're becoming a person who's starting to study. You're starting to look into it. You're participating in some ceremonies. You're participating in meditation classes. You're reading. You're looking things up online. You're still a lay person. You're a lay follower of Buddhism. The second one is when you take the precepts, you become an upasaka. An upasaka is a lay person who's taken the five precepts. And we have the five precepts. We'll have them in another video. They're pretty easy. Basically, it's refrain from killing or taking a life, refrain from taking what isn't yours, refrain from false speech or harmful speech, really, refrain from sexual impropriety or sexual. There's a lot of sexual things to avoid and to watch out for, and it's very complex. So it's not just consent and stuff like that. We'll have to go over that a whole other time. But there's sexual impropriety, basically, and I can't remember the last one off the top of my head. It was false speech. Oh shoot! I just oh. And the last one, of course, is refraining from intoxicants that make you heedless. That's an important distinction as well. We'll talk more about those at a later time. But the ladies, so those are upasaka. Okay. Now the third one is called the Anagrika. Now that's basically like a deacon or a minister. That's this level that I'm at now is Anagrika. Okay. Now these are all the Pali terms for that, and there's a lot of variation depending on where you go. Now, if you're a Zen practitioner, it's going to be a little different than a Chan practitioner, which is going to be a little different from a Theravada or Vajrayana or other Mahayana, and there's so many other groups these days that we have a lot of different levels of that. Now, the next level up or down or whatever you want to call it is the Salmonera. Salmonera is a novice monk. Generally, in the Theravada tradition and Mahayana, when you become a monk at first, you're a Salmonera, and usually you're young. And many monks that I work with, started when they were 8, 9, or 10 years old. And what they do is they work until they're 18 or 20 years old or whatever it is, and then they become the next level, which is a bhikkhu okay, or bhikshu, or bhikkhuni if you're female, because we have a distinction between monks and nuns. Not much of a distinction. It's like any other, like Spanish or any romantic languages. There's a female version of the word and a male version. So it's bhikkhu and bhikshuni. So those are the monks, the monastics who have given up their jobs, given up their lives to study and promote the Dharma and to practice themselves, right? And they're usually the attendants and workers at temples and meditation centers, and they may do speeches and they may do social activities and stuff. Now, the next one after that is a lineage holder. We would call them more. Now, you would always call a monk venerable. Okay, you would always call them either maybe you might want to say Sifu is Chinese, or sensei or something like that, or something Bante or Tik or something, whatever the different, or Lama. That's kind of that level. Now, as we become a lineage holder, the next level up, this is someone who's authorized to bring other people into that lineage. Lineage is very important in many of the systems, especially in Zen Buddhism and in Tibetan Buddhism and Mahayana. Now, Theravada it is, but not quite as much. It's not on the forefront because they're trying to work on themselves. And there's a lot involved in that. So the next one is the Acharya, or Acharya, Acarya, is a lineage holder. Those are most venerable. Okay, you would call them most venerables. This most venerable, or that's probably the best term, would be a most venerable person. The next one is a Upadhyaya. Okay, Upadhyaya is probably an elder. Those are an elder person, usually kind of maybe an abbot of a temple, and then maybe, yeah, probably an abbot of a temple or abbot of a system. Okay, that's very, very high up there. So they're going to have below them masters, which are the Acharya, right? And then they're going to have bhikkhus, and then etc. Okay, now above that is a Sangha Raja, which means basically community king. Raja means king. So Sangha means community, so Sangha Raja. And so what those are like what we would call a patriarch or a matriarch, or His Holiness. So like you have His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He would be the Sangha Raja in this system, in this idea. So see, we have this different hierarchy. And hierarchy is very important in Buddhism because it sets up the traditions and sets up the way things are, which is actually very important. Even if you're like a secular Buddhist and you want to do everything on your own and you don't want to follow all of the dogmatic things and the ceremonial things, you're gonna see there's still going to be a a hierarchy. And a hierarchy is important because then you have continuity of training, and you also have stability of the training and longevity, because it's going to be handed down. And we see like the Bodhidharma, and then we have he's the first patriarch, right? And then we have the second patriarch and fifth, etc. And we come up until now. And those things did split off. Now what this does is just keeps those more viable and more sustained. That's how those survived. If the lineage holder, for example, or the leader of that group decides it's not worth it and walks away, what does everybody else do? Many people want to have some kind of leadership and direction. People want to have the tradition. They want to have, which kesa do I wear? Which mala do I carry? What is our main, like when I was in Japan, for example, I'd go to Japan, I'd show up at temples, and it was always come up, hey, he's a Buddhist too. And this was a long, long time ago when there weren't as many white Buddhists running around, I guess. And one of the main questions would be like, oh, really? What do you chant? So they always wanted to know what I chanted. Did I chant Naman Dabutsu or Nam Myoho Renge Kyo or Amitabha or Daisho or whatever it is, whatever it was? And I would always tell them Namo Amitofo, which is Chinese Buddhism, by the way. So that's what we learned, okay? And that was more of the Chan version of that, which is pre-Zen, pre-Son of Japan and Korea. And in the United States, you don't hear much about Chan Buddhism. There's a couple leaders in there, but anyway, so I just wanted to go over, those are the layers. Hopefully this came out pretty good. You can look it up on the website, thecenteredpath.org. Don't forget to subscribe, because that's free. You know, and this whole class stuff is free, and we do all that stuff. And eventually, we'll do maybe workshops and things like that. I do a lot of work with people with stress, and people with anxiety and depression, and people with suicidal ideations. We're getting in more into that, and we're working on some of the problems that people have in meditation and the process of practice. So this is Reverend Sean over the Center Path. You guys take care of yourselves and be well, and see if we can understand one more thing about Buddhism. Take care.